Hello and welcome to this fourth and final screencast in my series on using Content Manager with the Elasticsearch stack. What this dashboard shows us are all of the publicly available records from 5 different WebDrawer sites around the world. We've got the Colorado Department of Public Health, Sunshine Coast Queensland, Ontario Energy Board, Carlsbad in California, and the ORMS system in Oregon. For the month of January, Colorado by far registered more records than any others, at least those that are accessible to the public. We can see they've registered 65% of the total number that were registered. We can also see all of the top registered extensions. The vast majority of these were PDF, and if we click on these, it'll adjust the rest, but I'm not going to click on it just yet. Also, the majority of records that were publicly available when I ran these searches were around 8,000, and they broke down by these record types. And then the really cool thing is down below, the date histogram with count aggregated on site. What this is showing me is for the month of January, the time span of the date created value. So that field, which, what the records are, when were they created. We can see that in this cell, the Colorado Department of Public Health, in the month of January 2018, registered 3 records back from 1977. If I just pick another one randomly, they registered 32 from 1986, so on and so forth. If I expand any one of these, I can get more in-depth information, such as here, the names here, or just more viewing space to work with that visual. Same thing with the globe here, the map. If I bring that up, I can zoom in and actually get more information on where these individual records were registered or what the geopoints of those are. Right now, I'm just using geopoints that are for the site level, but if this was connected to an internal repository, then obviously it could show us much more information. If I go ahead and let me try to make this full screen again so it refreshes my visual. There we go. If I click on PDF, it'll adjust everything else on the map, and we can see that obviously all the PDFs are documents. They couldn't be anything else, but it just shows me my filter up here at the top, and it adjusted everything else. If I then again drill down into just Colorado, we can now see my visuals are now both PDFs and from Colorado. So obviously the map doesn't really help me, the pie chart doesn't help me, the behavior doesn't really help me, but what does help me now are these time span, these ranges here where it shows me what, these PDFs. So for the PDFs from Colorado, how many were from each slice of this time range here. If I drop off Colorado and then let's say pick Ontario Energy Board as my field, then we can see they only registered things going back to last year. There were 5 from last year. Most of their stuff is current to this year, and again, they're mostly documents. If I take off just the documents and look at everything, or I'm sorry, just the PDF, we can see they're still only registering, at least publicly, electronic documents. I can see here though they are registering a few messages, and then this is interesting. They registered an XLSM workbook, which is that's an Excel macro-enabled workbook. That's kind of surprising to see in the public realm. But what I can do from here is I can actually just back up into Kibana, and I can go back and choose my Discover tab, and let's say that was from ORMS. I'm sorry, that was from Ontario Energy Board. So if I go and I say I want to add a filter for site, and I want to pick is Ontario Energy Board, I can save that, and then I can go ahead and say I want only those things where the extension is XLSM, and we can see here are all of those records. And if I look at what's inside of this index, we can see the JSON model that I've used for this index includes pretty much a flat structure here where I have the date registered, the number, the behavior, so on and so forth. And here we can see what that is. I don't currently serve or save the URL, but I will maybe at some point to this record directly because I didn't really need it for the purpose of my dashboard. But what we can see, if I now exit out of Kibana and I go over to Elasticsearch, is that behind the scenes to support that Kibana dashboard, what I have are 5 different Elasticsearch indexes, and I've prefixed these with webmon underscore and then some code for the particular site. And each of these has that same metadata structure that we just saw. So they all support an owner, extension, record type, so a few dates, so on and so forth, right? This is all in here. And each of these is the exact same kind of metadata structure. And to populate these, what I've done is I've actually created a custom instance of Content Manager with a few record types. One being a WebDrawer site, 2 being a metadata a search, which would result in a download either of JSON or of HTML, and then some metadata that is generated off of that download. And if I take a look at any one of these folders, you can see I've just found these sites out in the public, by searching on Google. And I can see for searching the Colorado Department of Public Health, what I found was what the base URI for that site is. And if I flip on over and I just go to this site, you can see that it is a standard WebDrawer implementation with some customizations that you can just go and you can run a search on. If I do, let's say, run a search here, date created is this year. When it runs its search, if we just look at what the URL is, this is what I've done is I've then copied what that path is, and you can see I've got what my query is. So I'm doing a time span query for that WebDrawer site. Then I pass in what parameters or what fields of information that I want. And then I have some other things to just control how these are behaving. I originally started off having a Logstash HTTP poller. I tried to use those for these types of sites, but I ran into some issues. When we look at the actual downloads, right? For instance, the Colorado Department of Public Health, their WebDrawer site does not allow us to download JSON directly, so I can't do a format JSON. JSON has been disabled. However, other sites like the Ontario Energy Board and Sunshine Coast in Queensland, they have not disabled it. So I can just download JSON directly from one of those ones as an example, or I'll show you later. But this one, since JSON is not supported here, and all I can get are all of the columns in this type of fashion where it's their custom template, my download ends up being an actual HTML document, just an HTML file. And I can't effectively parse this HTML file. So here, if we look at this inside of Content Manager, this is a standard HTML file, and we can see it gives me exactly what I just saw on the screen. The record, this exactly matches what they're giving me here. So we can see it's the same type of structure, but I can't do anything with this in Logstash effectively. And the HTML itself, the underlying code that's inside of this document, is not XML compliant, so I couldn't use anything that came with Logstash. Anyways, so I wrote a few PowerShell scripts that just go in and open this up via the HTTP utility, the HTTP agility pack, sorry, and I extract all the fields. I then push those fields into Elasticsearch, and then that gives me my dashboard. So this can be used internally much easier than what I had to do to go and crawl all of these sites. However, hopefully it gives you a good idea of what you can accomplish with the Elk Stack and Content Manager. Thanks.